Hello everybody, and a warm welcome to the Swedish pavilion here at COP27 in Egypt. At this session we will focus on a world's record-breaking big project, EU project, towards autonomous transportation. With us today we have some well-renowned speakers from all around Europe that will show how we can showcase electric and autonomous transportation. Here at the Swedish Pavilion, we tend to talk about pioneer the possible, but sometimes we also need to look into what we believe today is the impossible. And at the negotiation here at COP, we talk a lot about financing, and it's equally important that we ensure that we have enough money for funding of innovation and research. And this will be shown in this session here today. So to kick off, I will invite Andreas Allström from Einride, Director of Public Funding and Research Collaboration, to showcase what we are here to talk about today. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you for inviting us to present this exciting project called Moody. And we have some slides as well to show. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, you can see them, Andreas.
There we are. So what we will talk about is a project called Moody, recently started project. We had a kickoff a couple of weeks ago. It's a 28 million euro project co-funded by the European Union. And I will briefly present the project, but we can go to the next slide and see who's with us today. So besides myself, we have Julia Heil from Maersk, representing a logistics company and their view on this project. We have from ITS Norway, Ragnhild, Wahl, and she is the coordinator of the project. And also from the Commission, we have Andreas de Candido, a policy officer at GDRTD. And from the research community, we have Hanne from SINTEF as well. We can go to the next slide. So the vision and the story of the project is to look at the logistics corridor from Netherlands and Rotterdam up to Oslo, and identify and resolve barriers on this corridor, both in confined areas in ports, but also on public roads. And the focus is on level 4, cooperative, connected, and automated heavy-duty transport. And the ambition is to take automated driving in Europe to the next level by demonstrating this in complex real-life use cases and pave the way to enable autonomous freight transport on important corridors and connect major ports across Europe. You can go to the next slide there. So the objective of the project, the main objective, is to speed up the introduction of cooperative, connected, and automated vehicles for logistics. And this will be done by looking at different aspects, so to implement the latest technology and overcome major deployment barriers, define recommendations for adaptations of supporting infrastructure, vehicle regulations and standards, but also demonstrate business models and partnership and perform technical and socioeconomic impact assessments, including life cycle analysis and study the impact on the environment. We can go to the next slide now. And in the project, we have 5 different use cases that are sort of the core of the project. We have the Norwegian one, which is focused on cross-border operations between Sweden and Norway, but also port operations and the physical and the digital infrastructure required. We have the Swedish one focused on hub-to-hub transport, so from logistic terminal to logistic terminal, and we'll look at aspects that the driver does today, like charging, loading, unloading, access to terminals, and so on. And we have the German one focused on the transition from motorway to confined area. In Netherlands, it will be focused on the port operations, And then we have the full corridor use case where we will collect data and identify challenges and critical road sections along the Rotterdam-Oslo corridor. We can go to the next slide. And this will be done by 29 project partners from different sectors. We have vehicle providers, public sector, technology providers, logistics companies, ports, and of course, research partners. So these partners will collaborate and co-create and bridge the gap between research and development and market-ready solutions. Yes, that was a very brief introduction to the project. So the purpose now is to discuss the expectations and the motivation for the project. So I'll leave the word to you, Pia.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for that presentation of that sort of common European project. This project is led by colleagues in Norway. So I would like to invite Ragnhild Wahl, from Director of Research and Innovation at ITS Norway. Please, Ragnhild, introduce ITS Norway's role in this and what you're trying to achieve in this project, please.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Do you have sound? Yeah, thanks. Yes, as Andreas was saying in the introduction, ITS Norway is a member association within intelligent transport systems. We have more than 18 members representing the whole transport sector, and we are a neutral player making an arena of collaboration between public and private organizations along the whole value chain. And that is an important starting point for us as a coordinator of this project. And our main ambition is to lowering the barriers for scaling automated transport. We have been working for paving the way for such transport for many years, and we experienced a huge number of pilots around the world. But we also experienced that there are challenges going beyond pilots, from pilots to industrialization. And that is a main role for us as a member association, is to make the industrialization come true, make business. And for this to happen, there are still many barriers to be broken, both regarding technology and regulation. And MODI will take a big leap toward this. The cool thing is that MODI paves the way for automated driving, both in confined areas, but also in combination with driving on public roads, which we believe in turn open for easier modal shift in the future. And we strongly believe that collaboration among all the players will be important in a project like MODI, and we are very honored to having a central role in coordinating this skilled team of enthusiastic organizations.
Thank you, Ragnhild, for that introduction as well. And as Andreas explained, this is a joint project between academia, industry, and public sector. So let's hear from the research society here. And I have with me Hanne from SINTEF. And Hanne, feel free to introduce your part of the project and how you're going to contribute your expectations.
Yes, thank you, Pia, and thank you for having me here. So I represent the SINTEF. Our vision as a research organization is technology for a better society. And MODI illustrates this in a very good way. Being a large-scale demonstrator, trying to resolve some very complex societal challenges, making the transport system more sustainable than it is today. And this will require new technology. But to unleash this huge potential which the new technology has, we need more applied research. We need to work together, as stated by the previous speaker here. We need the industry and the public sector to work together, and often across sectors, which previously has been more segregated than they are today. We also need more interdisciplinary research and collaboration. Engineers, computer science, as well as social science and humanities perspectives are needed to resolve these very complex societal challenges that we are facing today. And it's not just the technology that we need insight into. We also need human action. We need humans to change behavior. So it will not be enough to just switch out the old technologies with the new ones. We need to see some behavioral adaptations. So this all requires some more insight and more work on the societal readiness. We need the users to accept the technology. We need new business models, scaling, as Ragnhild said, of the pilots that are going on today. We need businesses and, of course, the public sector as well to start applying strategies with budgets that match the ambition. We also need new regulations, new legal adjustments. We need the bureaucracy to adjust, and as well the existing infrastructure, physical and digital, needs to be adjusted. So to sum up, we need more collaboration, a shared process where we test the technology, but also experience how people and humans can work together. And this human action is also something which will live beyond the project. So this is, we hope to see the largest changes actually after the project is done, when the partners are applying the lessons learned from the project in their businesses and their everyday operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanne, for that. And I'm happy to hear that you talk about the human interaction when it comes to autonomous, and that is, I think, well worth mentioning. All innovations, of course, need a customer and an end user, and we're now going to hear from Maersk, and I think Maersk, maybe for us in the logistics sector, need no other introductions than the biggest company in the world. So Julia Heil, Head of Logistics and Service of Decarbonization, warm welcome to us here in Egypt. And please let us know the expectation for Maersk and why you choose to join this kind of innovative project.
Yeah, thank you. And also thank you very much for the invitation to join the session today. We at Maersk, I think, probably more known as a shipping company. We also have quite an extensive business also on land, mainly heavy duty trucking. So that is a space which has not seen lots of innovation in the last years, but we see more and more pressure coming from digitization and solutions, and of course also from the decarbonization technologies. And it's extremely exciting times for us. We want to be at the forefront, specifically when it comes to decarbonization, but we also believe that autonomous has very interesting value for our operations and futures. So there's one aspect, of course, is related to safety, work environment in future of our colleagues in the front line. But then again, decarbonization is one of the main topics, and we see that energy efficiency can be really a changer already, a change today. Some of our partners that we work with report 15% and more efficiency gains by just doing driver trainings. And then just thinking of what we can do in an automated world where we can really control speeds, platooning, all these elements can have a huge impact on the fleet that we operate today. And then we are also very active in the electrification space of trucking, and looking here into the cases of how to scale specifically for long distance trucking. We specifically also joined this project to also further understand whether autonomous can change operational conditions, and with this also help scaling decarbonized technologies and make them available on reasonable cost and unlock use cases that we currently don't really think they are feasible to do. So overall, we see here a converging of different technologies, which we find very interesting, and very excited also. I think, Hanne, you mentioned this collaboration between different players, and we are part of the use case in Rotterdam. This is mainly around our terminal in Maasvlakte 2 terminal, where we are working on a demonstrator project for drayage, basically moving a container on an on-road truck from a terminal into a nearby warehouse. And just the amount of partners and companies that we have now been in contact with, and all the inspiration that we got from these conversations, sharing, understanding the interfaces, I think this is exactly what we need. We need to learn, and we need to learn together. We need to have these open dialogues, and it's great to be part of that project that actually enables these conversations.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for those words. And of course, this is one of EU's flagship projects, one of the biggest projects they have. It's a 28 million euro project. And of course, making that happen, we have European Commission with us, and Andreas de Candido, Policy Officer of DG Research and Innovation. So Andreas, we're happy to have you here and for enabling this project. And can you please tell us a bit more about the way European Commission is approaching this?
Yes, Pia, thank you very much for hosting now this chat. And I can confirm that from the side of the European Commission, this is indeed one of the flagship projects that we are financing and now looking at very closely. Modi is actually addressing two of the biggest current policy priorities for the Commission that are also very relevant in the frame of this COP27. Because the first one is the Green Deal. So really moving towards climate neutrality by 2050, and with the Fit for 55 policy objectives, which are the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030. The second policy objective that Modi is touching upon is ensuring that Europe will be fit for the digital age. This means, in concrete terms, making sure that in Europe we are fully exploiting all the opportunities that are offered by the very fast-paced developments in the IT dimension. And when we're talking about these two objectives, transportation and the mobility sector as a whole is one of the big pillars. Why? Well, when we're speaking about greenhouse gas emissions, the transportation compartment is one of the biggest contributors to such emissions. And therefore, recently the Commission has adopted a document, the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, in which a number of actions are depicted on how we can achieve these two policy objectives in the transportation domain. And I would just mention a couple of them that therefore are very relevant in the frame of this project, which are of course, moving to the zero emissions for road transportation objective. And the other one is having autonomous mobility deployed at large scale across Europe by 2030. And as I was saying, Modi is exactly tackling with all these objectives in a combined manner, and therefore it becomes very interesting for us to follow it and to build upon the results that it will have. Lastly, allow me also to mention how Modi is also important because it is addressing specifically the logistic and freight dimension. Which, when we're speaking about autonomous mobility, we immediately tend to think about transport of passengers, but it's not only that, and we in the Commission are strongly saying that the two dimensions are equally important, meaning the transportation of passengers, of course, but also the transportation of goods. So very pleased to be able to showcase a very relevant initiative that is not about passenger transportation.
Thank you, Andreas. And if I can have all the speakers back online so we can see them. And Andreas from European Commission, if I can start with you, I can definitely hear that this project fits with many of the policies of the European Commission. So how do you see that we can take these sort of Northern European projects being scaled to a different part of Europe, and your expectation in that side to sort of scale it firstly in Europe, but also, of course, then towards the rest of the world?
Thank you, Pia. Very, very relevant question. And yes, I mean, I've just said that we have great expectations towards Modi. It means Modi is now under the spotlight, and maybe they will feel a bit of pressure also in this house. And I hope it will be positive pressure in this respect. Modi is a large-scale demonstrator, which is one of our so-called flagship projects. And what we're expecting from why we're pleased about this project is, first of all, because it's going to conduct the testing the results in a live environment. So it's something that will really concretely prove impact in real life operational environment. And it is addressing a number of dimensions in addition to simply the development of new technologies that, of course, are extremely relevant and important to make sure that we will have solutions that will be marketable at some point. But Modi is going beyond this, and this is what makes it also very interesting from the perspective of the Commission. Like the fact, and many of these issues have already been mentioned, thanks to Modi, we will look into a cross-border harmonization of regulatory frameworks to really enable the deployment of automated mobility in this specific dimension in logistics and freight transport across Europe, not only in a very confined area in a single member state. Modi will be then demonstrating the business case for moving towards automation in the logistic and freight services. This is important because, yes, we can all think it's going to be good, it's going to bring an added value, but how can we demonstrate it? We need concrete examples really to say what kind of economic added value will this move towards, will this transition towards autonomous mobility bring to society at large? And Modi will be contributing to this assessment. Yes. Then we have, of course, the fact that we are conducting the activities. The project is a European project, but when we're speaking about deployment of automated mobility, we would be very short-sighted if we were looking only within the EU. The market for mobility, for transport in general, is a global market. So we cannot not collaborate with other strategic regions in moving towards this objective. And Modi will be addressing this. So it's something, again, that we as Commission will hope to learn from in order then to share the learnings with other partners at a global level, of course. And then what has also been mentioned, but I would like to stress once more, is how Modi will not only be developing technologies, it's also about looking at the socio-economic impact of the transition towards autonomous mobility. This is not something that can simply happen top down. There will be an impact on everyone's life. There will be an impact on jobs of people. There will be both in terms of also in terms of new jobs that will be generated because of this transition. And this needs to be understood well in advance before we will be really deploying the solutions on the ground and adopting them at wide scale. And Modi will be also addressing this issue that for us is extremely important. And again, looking forward to being able to assess the results once they will be made available throughout the lifetime of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas, for those words. And Ragnhild, since IHS Norway has chosen to coordinate this, as we know it, as a huge project, and what are you looking forward to? How will you combine all these kinds of actors, and where do you basically start working? Can you give us some insights on that?
Yeah, first I like to just comment on Andrea. Yes, we feel the pressure, and and yes, it's positive. And let's hope it continues like that during the whole process. Yes, where to start? It's a very big consortium. As Andreas said, we are 29 partners, but we also have 5 associated partners, or connected to the project. So there's a lot amount of actors. They share a common goal, but they're also competitors, and that's everybody joins this consortium with the ambition of not compete in the project. We will work together where it's necessary, and then we will compete when we have to. But and of course, regarding the vehicles and that the technology in the vehicles, of course there are business concerns to be taken. But as a coordinator, we want to make an arena where we can work together, where we can share information, and now we are setting up the whole structure with how to combine the different. I don't find the words in how to combine the different concerns in various working groups, and we want to have a very transparent project, and I think it's extremely important that we have all the stakeholders with us, and we also are now setting up an external stakeholder board where we can test and stress our hypothesis and intermediate results. And the stakeholder board, it has members from all around the world, all continents, and we will work closely together with them, both to gain insights on what's happening around the world, but also to share information from the project. So as a starting point now, we are setting up the whole team, and we will have very frequently meetings in the beginning to make sure that we are all working towards the same goals. So that's the organization part. And we have already been around conferences telling the happy story of the Modi, and we will definitely continue doing that and be present on different stages and events around the world.
Thank you, Ragnhild, for that. You have a big task ahead of you, of course. And Andreas Allström from Einride, being one of the companies that has this spotlight, as you heard, and expectations on you to deliver. So what are you looking forward to? And I assume that you can say something about Einride's sort of concrete action on the ground in this project, if you could do that, and as well as what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, sure. I should say a few words about Einride as well. I mean, we are a company that was founded only 6 years ago with the ambition to rethink the freight transport system and create a new sustainable ecosystem for freight transport that is digital, electric, and autonomous. And as we see it, we need to combine those 3 shifts to really benefit from their potential. So we are operating now manually driven electric trucks for a number of customers in Sweden and the US. And we are developing our own autonomous vehicle that you can see here behind me. So it has no driver cab, but it has a remote interface where a remote operator can monitor and send commands to the vehicle. So we've been very successful with that. And in 2019, we were first to operate such a vehicle on a public road in Sweden. And today we have permits to drive on public road in both Sweden and the US, and work with customers such as General Electric appliances in the US. And talking about the shift to autonomous, I mean, we have been mostly focused on the development of our vehicles that will take the freight from A to B, but there are so many other aspects to consider if you want to create the acceptance that we talked about earlier, and also the business case around autonomous freight transport. And I think we are in the middle of such a fundamental transformation of the transport industry, and no one really knows how the future will look like. But we, of course, have our vision, but to be able to explore and evaluate and validate that, that's not something that we can do by ourselves. So I think working with the partners in Moody's is a perfect project for that. And I think the setup of the project with use cases and demonstrations at the core is really something that suits us. I mean, doing pilots and test the technology in the real environment is really the best way to learn. So that's how we find the challenges that we need to solve to deploy and commercially operate autonomous electric vehicles. And you mentioned expectations, and I would say that, I mean, of course, the expectation is to get more autonomous electric vehicles on the road, but we are very humble about this, and we know that we have a lot to learn, so we're looking forward to do that in this project.
Thank you, Andreas. And maybe we can add that when Moody did a press release just recently on this big project, it hit the news quite a lot. Of course, people are now starting to reflect on what it means when you will drive on the motorway and you will see trucks without a cabin, without a driver. And I think that kind of sort of interaction. So if I come to you, Hanne, it seemed like you will also be following different aspects of this sort of, not just the technology one, also like human factors, safety. Can you say a bit about that, sort of also the not just human interaction, but maybe also human acceptance for this new technology?
Yeah. And I think that one strength of the project is actually that we have incorporated the social sciences and humanities very closely to the project. So within the project, we have the so-called co-creation arenas starting up immediately now after the project has had its official start, where we will go more into the barriers, for instance, what needs to be resolved for the technology to be useful to society at a higher level. Not just focusing on how to get the vehicle from A to B, but focus on how can that demonstration of the technology be useful to society at large. And of course, the environmental impact is very important in this regard. And another issue where we will have a lot of effort is into the impact assessment and also the gap analysis, where we will first make recommendations also in terms of where do we see that the missing links are, so to say, where is the technology not ready yet? Where do we see that there needs to be additional development before the technology is mature for being applied in society? And also, where do we need to see the society mature? Is it the regulations which is the biggest issue, or is it the standardization? Is it that the users aren't ready? Is it maybe it has to do with the budgets, or yeah, what are the biggest barriers towards being able to make this technology being useful to society at large?
Thank you, Hanne. And if I then turn to Julia at Maersk, you talked about that you have lots of innovation projects going and that you have big ambition both on the digital side and the climate side. So we also talked about, we are at COP27 here discussing the global agenda of climate. So how you as a big global company, how can you see how you could use that sort of, hopefully then conclusions from this project in other areas in the world, that we can deploy this to other regions, or what are your expectations in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically from a technology perspective, we also do hope that we gain learnings that we can deploy in other areas as well. I think it is important to realize that, of course, when we're looking at autonomous trucking in the US, there are also from a regulatory space, but also from an infrastructure space, from a player landscape, it's a very different environment. So there are some aspects which can be translated, but a lot of aspects, for example, also when it comes to society aspect, it's quite different. But I think specifically on the technology, and especially also how do we design the systems? How do we design interfaces? This is something where we can learn a lot. And I'm also hoping for some global standards around these systems so that we are also able to operate in a more integrated way. I think it's for us specifically important to understand the needs of logistics. European Commission mentioned that it's finally a project that is not about passenger cars, but actually about logistics. And it is very different when we're thinking about logistics operations, because a driver today has very different and many tasks that are actually related to logistics operations and not only to driving. And so this needs to also be included and incorporated. And of course, this is related to local conditions again. So we're hoping to see also some standards around how do we do, for example, customs, documentation, et cetera, et cetera. So when we're thinking about what actually enables autonomous in the logistics space, it's much broader than just a vehicle on the road. And I think this is exactly where we're starting now to learn, and hoping that we can also bring these discussions into other areas in the world as well.
Thank you so much, Julia. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. I would like to thank everybody. And of course, this is a huge project. We will happily come back to any COP sessions on our outcomes of this project. And I think, as was explained by the Commission, it fits very well with the European Commission agenda. We can see we can scale it globally. So this is definitely an example how we can pioneer what is today possible and what is in the future possible. So I would like to thank all the speakers with a big hand. And let's see how this will be progress in the future. Thank you.